Okay, you've seen the title, you've gone crazy. We're going to chat about it, mostly because of this. Because when discussing it on a recent episode of Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer pointed out, hey, in a couple of months, CM Punk should be over his injury and potentially he could come back to AEW. Now, he didn't say he definitely was or he definitely wasn't. He's just saying if the time is right, it could happen around March. As we are here though, and as everybody is talking about it, yeah, AEW should bring back CM Punk. Why? Here's why. The first thing I want to talk about is feelings. That's right, no other wrestling YouTuber is doing that. But when it comes to feelings and when it comes to emotions, we have to remember that wrestlers have these too. So when it does come to CM Punk or Kenny Omega or The Elite, we don't know what is going through their heads right now. So let's always take a moment to remember that before we start ranting and raving like crazy people. I mean, I really just want everyone to be happy. I mean it too, life's too short. If the voice of the voiceless is wanting to come back to professional wrestling though, I think we should just pull the trigger and get it done. Because when we do go back to the Brawl Out or All Out, I don't think this was fun for anybody. And I know it was fascinating news and you refresh that page every single day, but it just kind of puts some negativity into wrestling. As I always say, pro wrestling is actually better when you try and keep everything positive. Because if you make people feel good, 9 times out of 10 they'll stick with you. And just going back to brass taxes, there ain't no two ways about it, Punk is a big deal. And AEW sold out an entire arena based on a rumor, and as soon as he was in All Elite Wrestling, all of a sudden more people were going to shows, more people were watching the television show, and just go and look what he did for pay-per-view numbers. People were happy to spend money on CM Punk. Old fans also came out of the woodwork to see what their former hero was doing. Also, this really was a feather in AEW's cap. They'd done the unthinkable. Today things have changed, mostly because of that fateful day, and I always want to say I'm not picking sides here, because I just love WWE and AEW and all companies with all of my heart. But of course there is going to be bad blood all over the place, and going back to the intro, that ties into emotions, and it turns into how people feel, and it's going to affect you. I mean, we've all been there, be it in our personal life or our work lives. If something gets inside your brain, all of a sudden you're quite the sad panda. But much like any other area of business though, this happens. If you work in a bank and you see Sarah and Thomas going at it, you're like, man, they really don't like each other. Even if you're a janitor working in a school, you've got Brad and you've got Mike, and they're kind of going at it with Mops. I mean, it was terrible, right? And nobody needed it, but they're adults at the end of the day, so you gotta put them in the room and say, look, I don't wanna let you go, and I don't wanna let you go, so just find a way to work it out, and then get back to cleaning the floors and making stuff smell lovely. Now, I do not know Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, or CM Punk, but they seem like really good people. So I'm sure that anybody can sit down in a room and find a compromise, especially if you do also ponder to yourself, well, maybe this is what is best for AEW. Now, whether Punk could actually return as a babyface is a different topic for a different video, but that is something that AEW is looking for right now. They need that super duper good guy to sit on top of the company. Jon Moxley is absolutely there, but he has kind of been over-relied upon at this point, so we need some fresh blood. And while Bryan Danielson is doing it as I'm talking to you, Bryan Danielson is also just the most unique and best wrestler ever, so the way he approaches matches is completely different to anybody else. So it's a different kettle of fish, and if we start bringing Adam Cole into this situation, my word, you could totally do it with him, and I'm keeping everything crossed that AEW does, but why have one when you can have two? Which brings us back to CM Punk. Punk and MJF, for example, would be mega money now, given what's happened in the past and what could happen in the future. And let's not forget, when Punk first came in, he had a whole list of people he wanted to work with. We barely got through 10% of the roster. I mean, that thing was as long as Chris Jericho's list in WCW, and as Jericho has been brought up, yes, if you go out there in the rumor right now, you can read plenty of stories where apparently Christopher has said, over my dead body is CM Punk coming back to AEW. Ruh-roh. But there is the other side of this coin too, in the sense that apparently recently Brodie King liked a tweet that was in support of CM Punk, and we know that Dax Harwood is an ally, as are the likes of Danhausen. Jade Cargill is always saying pleasant things. So while I'm sure many in the locker room are still upset about this, there's also going to be some people that aren't, but it just goes back to what we've already talked about. As long as you're able to conduct yourself professionally, you don't have to be best buds with everybody in the back. Now, it doesn't mean what happened at that press conference can happen again, and in fact, if we do this, you're gonna have to put things in place to ensure it was a one and done. But during that sit down, you make sure you iron all this out, you make sure you find a solution, And the result of it all is a superstar comes back to your product, and that's good for the fans. Even if you don't like CM Punk, you must be able to see this. Once again, go and look at the numbers. Because the fans really do have to be the number one priority, unless obviously it ties into mental health. Now, once again, I understand this is a crazy out of nowhere situation, but I've already told you, if this is going to make somebody absolutely wrecked as a person, then I don't want to see it. To be honest with you, it's not worth it. But if Punk is almost back to 100% and is also still under an AEW deal, I don't know, man. I mean, think of all the other people that have been able to make up over the years. Edge and Matt Hardy, Vince McMahon and Stone Cold Steve Austin, Vince McMahon and Bret Hart, Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan. I mean, you can see the point here, and especially when it comes to the Hitman, nobody, including Bret, thought that was ever going to go down, but we got there. We did it. Finally, just imagine if everybody could get back to super happy fun times. I mean, when Punk first came in, I was like, oh my gosh, he can have a feud with Kenny Omega. And if those two people could sort that out now, with the history that's behind them, I'm sorry, that is going to be absolutely crazy. If nothing else, you would destroy the internet. I mean, dare I say it could even be the feud of the year, but even if we can't get to that because they don't want to work with each other, once again, we go back to the roster list. We could probably come up with things for 2 years at the minimum. I'm just a fan. That's all I am. I'm just a watcher of wrestling. When I ask my brain, do I want that? It goes boop, boop, boop. And the answer that comes out is yes. So there is a lot to unpack there, and ultimately we're only going to find out when we do find out. Which brings in the other question, would CM Punk go back to WWE? I just give you a shrug emoji, but I know what I want more than anything is for everyone just to get along. Now please do leave a comment below and let me know what you think about this, which is going to be very controversial, but put your opinion across in the most respectful way you can. Then please do like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Then, as always, if you go to WhatCulture.com, we have loads of articles about CM Punk. You can get involved there. You can also follow us at social media, WhatCulture WWE and Simon Miller 316, and there's other videos too. Please always remember, we just do these because we love wrestling and we're trying to have a good time. Keep the conversation going. My name is Simon WhatCulture. Thank you very much for joining me as always. I really, really do appreciate you, and know that I will see you very, very soon, because I'm trapped in this box like those guys from Superman that get sent to the Phantom Zone, so I must do what I'm told, otherwise I'll die. None of that is true, but I've said it now. There's no going back. Goodbye.